Black scholars are reaching a triumphant milestones and making history in the process. According to People's Magazine, Atlanta teenagers Jayla Jackson and Emani Stanton took home the title at Harvard University's summer debate competition.
And it's our job as a country to provide for our people.
That is Miss Jayla Jackson debating back in 6th grade. Now she and her partner Emani Stanton are making history on the big stage. The two Atlanta high schoolers just became the first female duo of color to win Harvard's International Debate Competition.
The bar has been raised, and that's a good thing for people and for girls of color all around the world.
So for me, it's a catalyst to go harder. For me, it's a catalyst for the next door that I walk into to create a space where we can combine this scholarship and this culture to have more Black girls dominating these academic spaces.
So with us this evening to speak on this topic, speak more on this topic is our monthly contributors, Brother Lawrence Muhammad and attorney Gavin Richard. Thank you all, brothers, for joining us today. So I'll start with you, Attorney Gavin. You know, this story comes upon the heels of Zayla Avant-Garde victory at the Script Spelling Bee competition. Are these two victories just another example of the greatness within our community that is often overlooked?
Well, I think it's a great example of the abilities that our young people can reach if they put their minds to it. First off, shout out to those young ladies, those teenagers, and special shout out to their parents, obviously, for the role that they have played in developing them, and congrats on their hard work. You know, I'm real proud of them. It's a sign that our kids can achieve, as I was saying, Brother Willie, great things. I also think that we also need to be mindful, and I'm not saying that we can't celebrate these victories, but these are also symbolic in nature. When we see kids that win awards like for Harvard University, and Harvard University won the speech and debate. I was in speech and debate myself when I was in high school. The young avant-garde lady who's from Harvey, Louisiana, a hometown girl. I was happy for her. Those are great accomplishments that we can make and smile about. Although in these difficult times that we face with. And that's the thing, they are symbolic in nature. But nevertheless, they're great accomplishments for those young ladies, because I think that they can, who knows where that can take them in the future. I believe the young lady, Miss Avant-Garde, who won the spelling bee, she has gotten several scholarships from different colleges here in Louisiana. She's offered a full scholarship out of LSU, out of Southern, and I believe Xavier, if I'm not mistaken, has offered her. I'm not sure about Dillard, but nevertheless, this is something that is great for them. I also did note and point out, I noticed one of the young ladies who won from Harvard, the Harvard debate, she mentioned girls of color and for girls, but we also got to remember we have men out here in the world. We have young boys out there as well who can compete in these debates, who are real gifted, I'm sure. And I think we ought to reach out to them as well, as something that would encourage our young African American boys, because who knows where that can take them as well. You learn speech debate. We're talking about kids that want to be lawyers. Guess what? You're going to have to argue in front of the courtroom.
Yes, sir.
And
yes,
so.
Sir. And I read they were the first two Black girls that actually won, but prior to that, there was another team that featured brothers as well. So, brother Lawrence, what are your thoughts on it as well?
Yes, I think it's a great opportunity, and at the same time, what I don't think is it's something new for us as a people. It's only highlighting the greatness that's already among us. And so, as my brother said, it's great, but I think it's also a two-edged sword, because we can debate, and that shows a certain level of intellect and also the education of this world, but there also should be a component of knowledge of self within that, so that these young girls can be grounded. Because to purely have academic or book knowledge with no knowledge of self, the enemy will use their brilliance for their own means and against our means as a people. And so the year before that, and I believe maybe the year or a few years before that, there were young men who actually won that debate. And so this is wonderful to see our young girls shine, our young women shine. This is a beautiful thing to see. But we also have to always keep in mind and keep the balance, because as of right now, our young women are also being used as a weapon against young men. So we want to make sure both of them shine. As our sister Avant-Garde, who is a spelling bee champ, man, this sister is beautiful and multi-talented. So I think it's great that it's being out there, and I think more young people can see it, and so they can say, I don't have to be a basketball player. I don't have to be an entertainer. I can use my mind, use my brain. That's awesome. But at the same time, there should be a knowledge of self component that goes along with that to ground these young people.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And you know, Stanton and Jackson, they're part of this Harvard Debate Council. Is a diversity project. And the objective of this initiative is to increase the representation of diverse scholars, right? It is designed to eliminate social economic barriers that stand in the way of academic enrichment opportunities. So, and it's put on by Harvard. It was a private white university. So Attorney Richard, do you think these type of programs are effective, or are they just really symbolic and maybe just something that these white universities are doing to say, hey, we're helping underprivileged youth?
You know, it's like what the brother was saying. It's a kind of a two-edged sword. It's a two-way street. I think that, yes, in some ways it does help some of our children for doing certain things and keeping them off of the streets. Not that every black child is on the streets or anything of that nature, because there are kids who are just interested in doing speech and debate. There are kids that are interested in things of that nature. However, I also look at it, yes, this is Harvard University. I have never heard, to my knowledge, Brother Willie, of an HBCU hosting a speech and debate or having a speech and debate club. I don't recall one when I was up at Southern University in Baton Rouge. I didn't hear anything about that. Now, those kids are in high school. When I attended St. Augustine High School, we certainly had a speech and debate club that I was a part of for a couple of years, and we certainly had competitions, but I don't recall a historical black college and university actually sponsoring a speech and debate competition, which, looking back now that you bring all of that up, I found very interesting. I certainly think that there is a great advantage for kids if that is something that they want to be interested in, that they can meet people and possibly they can, who knows where it may take them. But I think that we also should be mindful and instill in our kids when they participate in these events, who they're mingling with and what they're dealing with, and the competition that they have to face and what's expected of them. Because as we see even in the Olympics with Sister Simone Biles, she's being penalized for being a GOAT, for being the GOAT, and not because she's so great they don't want to give her full points. But that's something our people deal with in competition. So what's the points of the Olympics? What's the point of it if you can't beat a GOAT? But that's another story. But
yes, sir. That's maybe we can pick up on that, and God willing, on next Monday. And what do you say, Brother Lawrence? Do you think is it a way for Harvard just to say, hey, this is what we are doing, or are these type of programs achieving their goal of exposing black children to academic opportunities they may not have?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I'm not going to say it's not a good thing, because our young people are being exposed to much more than what a lot of them are used to or think that they can be. At the same time, this particular program with Harvard, this is not something new. So this has been going on for a while, but of course now it's being opened up to, as they say, people of color. So I would look at it from this standpoint also. Let's not forget that Harvard University is also a university that does a lot of social studies. So in allowing people of color, quote unquote, people of color, they are not just looking at how they debate, they are looking at our rise as a people, and they are monitoring us. And so this gives them a gauge on where we are as a people and what they must do as a people in order to preserve their dominion. So yes, it's a good thing for the exposure, but at the same time, none of these universities will do anything that's not going to also benefit them and benefit their rule in this world. So they're studying us at the same time.
Thank you. Now we're 3 minutes away to our next break. So if you can briefly respond to this, we'll start with you, Attorney Gavin, then we'll close out with Brother Lawrence in the next 3 minutes. The winners expressed several times how they hope that their win inspires Black boys and girls. So how can we use these examples of what we've just seen with them and the sister with the spelling bee to inspire other youth?
I think engaging with them, talking to our children instead of talking at them about how important some of these clubs can be, like the speech and debate team, if you're interested in doing things of that nature, as I stated earlier, or a glee club. Oh, I know it's something different, but things of that nature where they could get involved socially. The adults, especially at schools, at churches in particular. If you look at the film that came out back in 2010, The Great Debaters, about the all-Black speech and debate team at the historically Black college, the historically Black college, I believe it was in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it was Texas Southern, I could be wrong. I don't want to say the wrong name. And gets kicked the college or the alumni off. But, I don't think we have that anymore because everybody is interested in athletics. So perhaps something to take an example of, and these two examples that we have and show them to our children. Say this is what we can do.
And thank you, Brother Lawrence. We have 1 minute. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I think what we can do is use them, put them up on the pedestal, put them out front. And by doing that, what I've noticed is that a lot of our young people don't feel worthy, don't feel that they can achieve and that there's no hope for them. So if we can show them someone that's, from their side of town, that's come up, from their neighborhood and see that they're being successful, I think that would definitely help. So just like Minister Farrakhan did with Jesse Jackson when he ran for president, he said that this can be an inspiration for our people to let them know that they also can achieve greatness. So I think we should put them out front.
Appreciate that. And so thank you all for your commentary on this subject. And for our people who are watching, we're going to pause for some announcement from our next sponsors. But when we return, our contributors are going to comment on Jackson State coach Deion Sanders demanding that a reporter not refer to him by his first name. So we'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
Deion Sanders, the NFL Hall of Famer and head coach of the Jackson State University, who is entering his second season as the head coach at Jackson State, walked out of a Southwestern Athletic Conference Media Day event on Tuesday after a reporter addressed him as Deion when asking a question.
You're up.
Hey, Deion, I was just wondering if you could...
hold on. Let's back up a little bit. You don't call Nick Saban Nick. Don't call me Deion now, okay?
I call Nick Saban Nick.
Yeah, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. That's a lie. If you call Nick Nick, you know you get cussed out on the spot. So don't do that to me. Treat me like Nick.
Okay, Deion.
All right.
Just...
So we're back with our guests, and they're going to be sharing their thoughts on this. And we'll start with you, Brother Lawrence. Just, what are your feelings about the Hall of Fame cornerback Deion Sanders? First, we'll start off with this before we get into your stuff about that. Just what are your thoughts about him even becoming the head coach at Jackson State University and the excitement that it has caused?
I would say the tide is turning. So what I mean by that is to have someone of the stature of Deion Sanders to come back to an HBCU or a Black university, to come and to bring that prestige and to bring that clout and to bring that fame with him, that shows a great deal of the potential that we have. So if you notice, a lot of these players, they come from places like these small universities, Black universities, but they don't necessarily get the recognition that they should. And so by Deion Sanders coming back to Jackson State University, he not only brings himself, but he brings the eyes of the world to an HBCU. And so now we get to see the greatness of our people as a whole. So I think it's wonderful that Deion Sanders would choose to come and teach at an all-Black school. I think it's wonderful.
Yes, sir. And I'll go to this next question to you, Attorney Rashad, and then we'll come back with Lawrence to get his opinion, his view on the same one. It's being reported that the reporter has a history of calling those he interviews by his first name, and it's even shown that he called Nick Saban by his first name. So did Coach Deion Sanders overreact, or does he have a point?
No, he did not overreact. And let me just clarify something too, Brother Willie. It's my understanding, I think you said that he walked out of the event. From what Deion had clarified, well, Coach Prime, as he likes to be called, he actually walked out from just this reporter, but he stayed at the event for the remainder. That's the first thing. The other thing is, no, he didn't overreact, because while, yes, this reporter may have called other coaches by their first name, Coach Prime, from the beginning, when the conversation started, asked him to not call me Deion, you call me Coach Prime. That's the name that he wants, and he did it as a matter of respect, because that's the title he has earned. He is a coach now. I have former judges retired judges who I'm close with, and I would say I'm on a friendly level, but I still refer to them as Your Honor, or I refer to them as judge, because that's the rank and title that they earned. That's what they were elected to. I call them judge. I call Judge Joe Brown still, Judge Joe still, because that's the title he earned. If I call you Brother Willie or Minister Muhammad, even though I consider us being friends, there may be sometimes very rarely where I say Willie, but I call you Brother Willie out of respect. That's the title that you want. And Deion Sanders took his respect, took his name as a man with him when he walked out of that press conference to send a message. I think this also goes to another point that Brother Lawrence was even saying too. When you said the tide was turning, brother, remember this. HBCUs, I think for the last 50 years at best, they started to be on a decline, because many of the players, like at Grambling, for instance, where Coach Eddie Robinson was, or Southern University, we had Coach Pete Richardson and A.W. Mumford and so forth. A lot of those players, potential players who were in high school, started to go to the SEC, started to go to the Pacific 10, and go to colleges like USC, UCLA, Alabama, LSU, at times when they weren't even allowing Black players at Alabama, and Bear Bryant was recruiting black players. And the reason why so many of those players go there instead of the HBCUs is why? The money is always there. The ABC Sports, they always show College Game Day, college football, ESPN. It's always at these PWIs across the country. We don't see them too often at HBCUs. They're going where the money is. But having a Deion Sanders, who is well known, a Hall of Fame cornerback, one of the greatest players of all time, coach a historically black college and university, will do great wonders to recruit young African American men to that school, and may also open the doors for other HBCUs to go on that track. There was talk originally of some Southern University getting Aeneas Williams to coach, although that didn't happen. But it brings and it also opens up the game.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the guy who played for the Tennessee Titans, the running back. He's coaching one of the HBCUs as well. Thank you for that, Attorney Rayshard. So what are your thoughts on that, Brother Lawrence? Did prime time Deion Sanders overreact?
No, man, he's prime. He can do that. He's Coach Prime. But no, he did not overreact. One of the first things that happens when you're introduced to someone or you're on a job for the first time. So my name is Lawrence. And whenever I'm going somewhere and I'm introduced to someone, so they ask me, would you prefer Larry or Lawrence?
Wow.
And I always say Lawrence because that's my name. So usually people will ask you, what do you prefer? So since this guy didn't necessarily ask Deion Sanders, but Deion Sanders said, I'm a coach, call me coach. So that should have been it from that point on. He should have respected his wishes and called him coach. Now, very briefly, there's a show that's on Showtime called Billions. And there's a character on that show called Taylor. When Taylor was introduced in this show, the way she introduced herself, she said, my name is Taylor. I go by they, them, and their. So she's a part of the LGBTQ community. But she says, I go by the titles of they, them, and their. And ever since that, whenever they was referring to her, they would refer to her as they or them or their. So if that's the case, why would we seek any less for ourselves and wanting the respect? See, the thing about it is, some Caucasian people still think that they own black people and we are still their property and they can talk to us any way that they want to talk to us. So I'm going to call you Deion, you Deion. So doesn't it sound like Toby? No, my name is Kunta, but I'm going to call you Toby. And so that's what we're experiencing. We're dealing with the mindset. And that's what we're dealing with today, a certain mindset.
Wow, it's interesting you bring up that point. So, Attorney Rayshard, do you think that the reporter was demonstrating or displaying a little passive-aggressive racism?
Oh, absolutely.
White supremacy?
Absolutely. And yeah, I have heard the white supremacists were coming out. Our brother Tariq Nasheed was talking about it and how an LGBTQ reporter was trying to defend this Nick, I believe his name is Nick Sousa, if I'm not mistaken, by saying, well, he's always acted like a jerk. It had nothing to do with race and so forth. I know because I'm an LGBTQ. And it's like, wait a second. That has nothing to do with that. That ain't even on the same level of what we're talking about here. This is a man, he was asked to call Coach Sanders, Deion Sanders, address him as Coach Prime or Coach Sanders. He refused. That was the first thing. As Brother Lawrence said, it should have stopped right there. He did it. He was being facetious. He was laughing after he did it. So he clearly meant to do what he did. And let me be clear. I like to joke around myself, laugh with people. But Deion or Coach Prime was all about business when he came up there. He said, and he was being serious. He's like, don't call me that. So even though he said it with a smile, you could tell he was being serious about it. And I would have called him by Coach Prime and said, oh, excuse me, if that's what your title is, I'll call you that. But what you had was, and this was basically, this was a little passive aggressive microaggression towards Deion Sanders. I think that Deion was right in what he did. And yeah, there was an element of race in it. And, you know, like we said, there's not a lot of respect for HBCU coaches, I think, in this country because they've been looked at for the last 40, 50 years as laughing stocks.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point you bring up, Attorney Rashad, that, you know, Deion is also trying to set a standard for those who are going to come after him. And that leads me to this question, Brother Lawrence. Do you think that there is a fear as it relates to Deion Sanders because he has that star power? He's able to get to the Hall of Fame and former NFL players to come and coach. And now we're seeing that it's almost every day or every other day, there's an article of some player leaving one of these big schools going to HBCU. So in these last couple of minutes, what are your thoughts on that? Is his presence they're afraid of something?
Yeah, they're definitely afraid of it. It always starts off as a joke. Oh, Deion Sanders thinks he's going to go down to this black university and fix something. So it starts off as just a joke or just ridicule, right? But then when they start to see that the players are now starting to come in line, the school and everyone else is starting to come in line, then it's like, whoa, wait a minute. He might have something here. Now, when they see the potential that's coming from this, now we have to stop it. But we can't be overt in the way that we stop it. We have to do little things and make it little innuendos in order to do that. So, yeah, there is a fear because now all of the players that they were getting in the Pac-10 and all of these other ones, they're going to say, hey, I want to go to an HBCU, similar to Master P's son, who's now at an HBCU for basketball.
That's interesting. And Attorney Richard, we have 2 minutes briefly. So is there a fear around Deion being at this HBCU and that can pull away this black talent that you talked about?
I guess fear would be an appropriate term for it because if you're talking about an NFL Hall of Famer, you know, people regard Prime Time, and I remember Prime Time as a kid because he played for the Atlanta Falcons, and we, being here in New Orleans, we had to face the Falcons and our rivals all the time. I remember him also for the Cowboys, and the 49ers were also rivals of the Saints as well back in the day with the NFC West. So we knew who Primetime was, and he was one of the most popular athletes then, and he's still very popular now because of his name and his reputation. So certainly there is, I would say, some aggression, if you want to use the term aggression, against someone of that caliber coming to an HBCU and changing the tide, because he can bring in many recruits that will go to an LSU or go to a Texas A&M or UCLA because of who he is.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And thank you. So we're coming up on our last segment. So we're going to pause for some announcements from our sponsors. But after the break, our contributors will share their thoughts, and I can't wait to hear their thoughts on the Texas senators passing a law that eliminates what they're saying is critical race theory from public schools. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness as well as the greatness of our people. And upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Classes begin September 1st. To enroll, visit AsiaticMinds.com.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline reads, "Separate and Be Saved." America's race problems and deadly race interactions are growing worse. It is time we leave the children of our former slave masters and 400-year-old tormentors. Separation from whites is the only and best solution to this problem, a serious problem that is rooted in prophecy. This FCN Volume Number 41 edition middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is entitled, A Case for Separation. To read more, subscribe to FinalCallDigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVnews.com Final Call Cover Report.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.
Amid a desire to enact restrictive voting laws across the state, the Republican-led Texas Senate passed a bill on Friday, July 16th, to further drive Republicans' fight against critical race theory. The bill eliminates the requirement for public schools to teach how the KKK and its terror campaign in the name of white supremacy was morally wrong.
Banning critical race theory in Texas public schools, that's one item on the agenda this special session in the Texas legislature. After hours of public comment, the Senate Committee on State Affairs voted to send Senate Bill 3 to the full Senate for a vote. KVU's Molly Oak breaks down that bill.
Critical race theory was a hot topic during the regular session, and now it's back. Thursday, the Senate Committee on State Affairs held a public hearing on Senate Bill 3. Mineola Republican Senator Brian Hughes says the bill requires a broad framework but doesn't affect what is taught, creates a civics training program for teachers, prohibits teachers from being compelled to talk about current events or controversial issues, among other things. However, critics say it will limit what's taught in Texas public schools and whitewash history. Now, lawmakers already passed a House bill on critical race theory during the regular session. It included several amendments that required a diverse group of literature on race to be taught, and Governor Greg Abbott signed that bill into law. But the governor wants lawmakers to change it back to the original bill, which is why it's back on the call. According to the text, SB 3 would remove the requirement to teach things like slavery and the ways it is morally wrong, women's suffrage and equal rights, the Emancipation Proclamation, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream.
Man, that's amazing. We'll start off with both of you all, and I'll start with you, Brother Lawrence. Like, what are your thoughts that they basically passed this legislation that prevents people from teaching that the KKK, their historic terror, was morally wrong, and even that slavery was morally wrong? That's crazy.
Yeah, where do we start on this one? Look, we talked about fear in the last segment with Coach Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
This is really fear. And I'll explain to you why. I want to give you a quote from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. This is from the New Education Paradigm. He says, at the root of every civilization is a knowledge, inherent in which is an idea that gives energy and direction to that knowledge. But if the idea at the root of that knowledge and civilization is finite, then the world that comes as a result of that knowledge is also finite. It has an end. So we have to ask ourselves the question, excuse me, what is the idea that's at the root of the knowledge of this world? The idea at the root of the knowledge of this world, the minister says, is the idea of dominion and rule. And we would call that today white supremacy. So that is at the root. So if white supremacy is at the root of the knowledge of the civilization, and everything that you and I see is based on that, the educational system is based on that, then this educational system is falling, this civilization is falling, and so therefore they have to get rid of anything that will further or quicken the fall. So they don't want to talk about certain issues, so you want to get rid of Martin Luther King, get rid of talking about the Ku Klux Klan, talking about slavery and things of that nature, because they don't want to be exposed for who they are, which will quicken the destruction or the fall of this nation.
Wow. Attorney Rashad, you know, in addition, this legislation wants to put restrictions on teaching about certain passages in the I Have a Dream speech, Native American history, the work labor of activist Cesar Chavez, and even the women's suffrage movement. So do you think this is just a Texas mindset, or will we begin to start seeing similar legislation around the country?
Well, this has been, well, whitewashing of history has been around for years, Brother Willie, even before this bill. And it goes back even for a few years ago when I remember they started to teach that the transatlantic slave trade is now called as the triangular trade in schools. And I believe that did start in Texas. So it makes you think it's just a Texas mindset, but it's actually something that has been built, and to me, that's been going on for years. And we can talk about our schools in general across the country have been failing our young folks. It's not even funny. We have schools that have drag queen reading days. You have teaching young children, over sexualizing them. Those are things that are happening. And now we have the dumbing down of American society, which has been going on for the last 50 plus years, starting with the breakup of the family unit. Everything has changed now where there's no role model in the house anymore, or strong role models in some of our homes anymore. I can imagine this being challenged in the courts because as I read the bill, and I'm reading from my phone exactly what they allow in it, though, they allow the teaching from a historical perspective of the 13th, 14th, the history and importance of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which were the bills, that the amendments, as you brothers may know, that gave Black people, their right to be citizens, the right to vote, the right to be citizens, and freedom from slavery, supposedly. But then when I read the other paragraph of it, it says the ability to, this is paragraph 2, that you get to see a commitment to free speech and civil discourse. And right there, they omit also the writings of George Washington, Ona Judge, Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings, any other founding persons of the United States, writings from Frederick Douglass's newspaper, the North Star, the Book of Negroes, the Fugitive Slave Acts of 1793 and 1850 plus, continue in the Indian Removal Act, and I can go on. There's a whole bunch that you all can go look on. Just look up Senate Bill 3, and you can read how they omit these. So you have a dumbing down of society and our children where, and also keep in mind too, I just remembered in Texas, they have a bill that was passed, and I'm all about gun rights, but you can now carry a gun in Texas without a concealed weapon. And let me say that, a concealed weapons license. And let me say this, Black folks, and I encourage self-defense. I encourage being a responsible gun owner. If they have laws for them, hey, use it to your advantage. It's not bad to go and buy a pistol right now because anything can happen. Learn about gun safety and so forth. But this is ridiculous. What's going on right now is ridiculous. And it's a whole nother ball game what's being said across this country. They're dumbing down your children.
Wow, thank you. And this last question, as we get close, Brother Lawrence, we'll let you take us out on this. In light of such legislation, and what Attorney Rashad had mentioned, what action should Blacks begin to take or continue to take?
Teaching our own. Teach our own. We can't, the time is up for us to continue to rely on someone else to teach our history and teach our children. The responsibility falls on us. So we can't really in truth, when you get to the root of it, we really can't complain when the Texas legislature wants to take out all of these things that's dealing with Black people and their racial history. That's their school system, and they have the right to do it. Now, the question is, what will be our response? Because our responsibility is to properly educate our own children, give them our own history, because we know that they will not teach us our history. And I will say this, I believe that The big mistake came in when they called this critical race theory. That gave them an opportunity to go against it instead of just calling it American history, because there's no theory in this. These are acts that have been committed, that's verified. So there's no theory in this. And so when we give the enemy just an inch into the door, they're now going to exploit that inch and talk about critical race theory, which is splitting people, because this is your opinion of history, not actual history, that's dividing the people. So I think the mistake was in the naming of it, critical race theory.
And you know, attorney, it was, you know, this was really something that was taking place on college campuses. There was a sister who started this, but when you really look at it, you know, I saw one of the video clips while they were talking about this, and they showed, it was interesting. They pretty much showed young white students, and I said, this is really an attempt of Caucasian people who are still adhering to this principle, this philosophy of white supremacy, that they are really trying to protect that last kernel of seed of white supremacy in the minds of future generations of white children and white students. So now something that's not even being taught on the elementary and the middle school and the high school level, they're trying to make sure, but they're being very proactive. And that's one of the things that we can actually learn from them. But like you said, we shouldn't be waiting to send our children to school anyway for them to learn about history. That should start in our homes with a lot of the other skills that are needed. So thank both of you all, gentlemen, for your time and your participation and for your commentary, especially our brother attorney Gavin Rashad, who's always there when one of our monthly contributors isn't able to come on. And also thank you too, brother Lawrence, as well, for being consistent and coming on as well. And we want to thank our viewers for tuning in. We thank each of you all for tuning in. We thank you all for joining us today and tuning in to National Network View News. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. We really want to hear what you have to say with us. And also make sure you follow us on social media at NNV News. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our subscribers have gone up. We still want to get more. So thank you. This is your brother Willie Muhammad with the National Network View News. Peace.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.